This episode is brought to you by Dick Dyer Mercedes-Benz, the first Mercedes-Benz in South Carolina.
So kind of talking about how they embraced your restaurants. When you're first starting, how do you go about promoting your new project, number one, but then how are you getting people in the door consistently, not just those first few nights when it's open?
If I didn't go into the restaurant business, I would have probably gone into some sort of advertising or marketing, because I find that to be completely one of the most fascinating fields. And there's the psychology of why people do what they do and how to get to them and everything like that. And the methods have changed tremendously since 1995.
Yeah.
You know, the birth of, not the birth of the internet, but the birth of the internet as we now know it happened from that time on. Mm-hmm. And so how you marketed to people was changed completely over those years. Like, we were the first restaurant at Mr. Friendly's to have a very substantial email list and a very substantial open rate for our emails that we sent out. And I would send out emails once or twice a week, and they were all prose. They were not just bullet points with a graphic. Most of them didn't even have graphics back then. It was just a letter to everybody of what was going on, what we had planned, what we were working on, the tribulations and travails of having a restaurant, but always a very positive tone that let people know that we love what we do and we're gonna keep doing it for them. And then as the internet grew and social media came around, we started to use that as our platform. I mean. Yeah. Like everybody else, we've moved away from traditional, old school marketing, like newspapers, magazines, any kind of print. It's fallen out of favor because you're not gonna get the return on it unless you basically put a coupon that people can clip, and we're not that kind of place really. So getting people in the doors was way more difficult back then when I didn't have a reputation. Nowadays, it's a lot easier because people know that, Kristian's opening a restaurant, we got to go try it out. So it's easier for me. If somebody were just starting out and new to the business, I would just tell them, you need to hit all those ways of getting people to know that your business is there. Yeah. Do it in a super high quality way. Pay for a photographer. And be personable. Let people understand your personality for your place from the start, in order so that you're just not a cookie cutter, big franchise that's putting out things that go through a PR agent who sanitizes them as much as possible before it goes out so it doesn't offend anybody. Yeah. Let your personality shine through so that that people understand what kind of place it is.
Absolutely. So your shirt says "Farmers are my heroes." How involved are you in the local regional agricultural market, in terms of sourcing product, and how does that work for you?
I've talked about this for years, so this is not new, but when I first moved to South Carolina, I expected it to be an agricultural state.
Yes, sir.
It bills itself as one. I came from Minnesota, which you would not guess as an agricultural state, although during the summer they grow a lot of corn in the western parts and such. But I was sorely mistaken and really disappointed when I got here and found that where I had worked in Minneapolis, trucks would pickup trucks would pull up at the back of the door full of produce, and you just go out and basically shop out of their trucks. Like, it was amazing. Like, and I just figured, if I go to South Carolina, it's going to be even better than that.
It'll be year-round.
Year-round, and there'll be trucks pulling up and farmers with truckloads of stuff saying, hey, you want to buy some fresh this, fresh that? And it never happened.
Wow.
Actually, Emil DeFelice, from the Soda City Market here, he was the first farmer to ever pull up with a basket of stuff, and he's like, hey, I grow this stuff, and I was like, this is fantastic. I've been waiting for a guy like you. And then I said, okay, so I think he brought me a chicken and some squash and some herbs, and I was like, awesome. So like next week I need 24 chickens, I need 20 pounds of this and 20 pounds of that. And he just looked at me and was like, I'm not that kind of farmer. And I was like, oh man, here we go. So it's been a long road. It's not easy. South Carolina is it may be an agricultural state, but it's a big agricultural state.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of monocropping going on here, a lot of soybeans, a lot of land taken up by single crops and not a lot of small farmers. And small farmers, it's really difficult to make any money. And I've seen over the years so many come and go. They'll show up, have great stuff, and then 3 years later they're just like, if we want to pay the mortgage and keep our kids in school, we got to get out of this business.
Yeah.
So we work with Grow Food Carolina, which was a phenomenal addition to our distributor network. And what they do is they make it easier for those farmers to, instead of the farmers getting in their trucks and having to come to restaurants and everything, they can bring all their stuff to Grow Food Carolina. Grow Food Carolina acts as the distributor of it. You can go online and see what they have fresh in stock, and they'll send it to you on a truck. So, and Sen Brothers in town, we've been working with them since before I even opened Mr. Friendly's. They've been a lifelong partner of ours. They source local things, and they let us know what they have locally to bring in. I used to ride my motorcycle around the back roads of Columbia back in the day and try to locate farmers.
Yes, sir.
And I don't have to do that as much anymore, but we still will. Like I've got a chicken farmer that we get a lot of our chickens from. He can't supply us with all of them. You know, the needs of busy restaurants far outweigh their ability to produce. But we get a lot of chickens from him, all of our eggs from him. They're all free range. So, but we have to, like, even then, we have to supplement. We go through so many eggs, even though we're not a breakfast restaurant, we go through so many eggs that we have to supplement them with the best that we can find. And that's, you know, a lot of times those don't come from a local source.
Yes, sir.
We hate to pause our conversation with Kristian, but quickly, just text New Horizons to 85377 and we will be able to help you with all your buying and selling needs.
So, you mentioned not only the restaurant industry when we were talking before we started, but you've got some other kind of endeavors that you're involved in. Tell us a little bit about those.
So my partner Vanessa and I have a company called F2T Productions. We put on big events like the Pig and Oyster Roast, the Rosé Festival at the Hampton Preston Mansion, the Great American Whiskey Fair at 701 Whaley. We do harvest dinners every month other than the 2 summer months, July and August. We don't do them because it's too hot at the farm. At City Roots, we manage City Roots as a venue.
Yeah.
So we've recently renovated the farmhouse into an actual private dining space that'll seat up to 42 people. So we can do private dinners, luncheons, business meetings, things like that. So we stay busy with that too. I mean, the Great American Whiskey Fair has become one of the largest whiskey shows in the entire nation, and a lot of people still don't even know it exists, even though we're going into our 13th year.
Wow.
12th or 13th year. So,
and that's a great segue into your endeavor up on Main Street, Bourbon. You were just recognized as one of the top 10 bourbon bars in the United States to come to. That had to be quite an honor.
Yeah.
Was that expected, or?
No, you know, a website like Mashable, to have them actually have somebody from their writing department, you know, add us to that list is super special. Like we're on the list of great bourbon bars that's promoted and sponsored by Buffalo Trace, and that list is really long, which is, you know, it is basically a who's who of the best best bourbon bars around the nation, and whiskey bars. So, to be put on a short list like that by them was really special. But it's like I said, you're only as good as your people, and you know, we've got Kat Hunter has been with us since day one, and she's our bourbon maven. You know, she is like, she knows everything about bourbon. She loves bourbon. She's super passionate about bourbon. The little blurb in the article about, I think the author said something to the effect of, somebody in our crowd said something about that they wanted to know something about a certain type of bourbon, and that's Kat's cue to just run and grab like 6 bottles and come running over to the table and go, okay, well, here we go. Are you ready? Strap yourself in. So, to get that sort of attention is, I'm not going to say expected, but definitely well deserved for the job that they do there.
That's awesome.
So what's the balance then? You have all these different ventures. Where do you find time to go back to each restaurant and give it the time it needs to both prosper and grow?
So right now is a difficult time for that.
Yeah.
So I have to find time here and there to make small visits to Bourbon, Black Rooster. Right now, since we don't have a lot going on at F2T during the summer, I've got a couple wine dinners and a sake dinner and a whiskey dinner coming up that I'll dedicate time towards. But once Dragon Room is kind of, when I pull the training wheels off and let them roll, then I can just basically split my time evenly between each place, which is a lot of fun. The great thing about my job is that there's no inbox, outbox.
Yeah.
It's literally a creative endeavor every single day. I wake up excited to come to work because, there's some pain in the ass things, like right now I'm gonna have to go, Nathan and I are working on a pasta cooker that hasn't been working since day 1 here to replace the thermostat. So there's stuff like that.
Sure.
But even that's fun. Like, in the grand scheme of things, I get to work on menu development, I get to work on cocktail development, I get to work with my staff on service, I get to work on the appearance of a place, I get to work on... There's just never... I'm never like, oh, I'm so sick of doing this.
Yeah.
Because all I have to do is, shut my laptop, walk in the kitchen, put on an apron, pick up a knife, and I can start working on something back there. And then when I get tired of that, I can walk out to the bar, pick up a couple of bottles, come up with a cocktail. There's just always something new and fun to do.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, Kristian, do you have any more questions, George?
No, I'm good. That was awesome. Thank you
Cool.
for your time.
Well,
Anytime.
I mean, it's impressive to see because I look at kind of where your locations are around Columbia, and those areas are just booming. Main Street's booming. West Columbia's booming. The Vista has come a long way since I was in school here,
Right.
In the late '80s. So, thank you for being a part of that growth and that drive for Columbia's food scene, because for a long time there wasn't much here.
I remember the Vista back.
Yeah. It was a little bleak back here.
It was bleak. It was. It's crazy now, isn't it?
It is.
Main Street. Remember Main Street back in the late 80s, early 90s?
There was a cafe right at
where
the corner.
next door to, 2 doors over. Well, wait, no. Well, there was Capital Cafe was in the building that Bourbon is in.
Yep. That was the only place, like, really you knew, like, up Main Street to go to.
Yeah, and right next door to it, in the other part where the first part of Bourbon was a pawn shop.
Yes.
That was Main Street.
That was Main Street. So we applaud what you've done for the city of Columbia. And, thank you for joining us here today on our podcast to share that with us.
Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
All right.